Well, let's just roll into the next stuff. What do we got? 32 shows left. Let's roll the number generator and see what we get. It is 25. What is 25? Narenare Cheer For You. I don't think I've seen anyone talk about this show. I think it's a cute girls thing. Doing cute things thing. Let's find out. Yeah, not really feeling that one. I got about halfway through Narenare Cheer For You. Most of my complaints are with the aesthetic of the show. Like, there's nothing, like, poorly animated about it. The CG cheering scenes are questionable because of the frame rate. This is a show about, like, cheerleading squads, I guess, and cheerleading competitions, which I've always wanted to know more about. I believe Makeine had competitions in them too. And I liked Makeine a lot. That was a Dogakobo show, right? I think that was a Dogakobo show. And this one's actually a PA Works show. So, second PA Works show of the season. Which I think looks significantly less good than Mayanaka Punch. But again, it's not necessarily because it's poorly animated. There are some cool cuts here and there, but I don't like the color choices at all. It is very... I don't know how to describe this aesthetic other than garish. But it's not like... It's a garishness that seems to have intent behind it. It's not like they just splattered a bunch of shit on the screen or anything. There is definitely a color palette at work. I just don't think the colors they chose match very well. And on top of that, it does the thing where the outlines aren't black. Sometimes they're red outlines, sometimes they're like a cyan outline. And sometimes that looks cool, and other times it just looks kind of weird. So, like, I just full stop do not like the aesthetic of this show at all. And also we're not getting like based on the opening scene, we're not going to be getting like Sakuga cheering competition stuff, or like, what do you call it? Routine. That's the word I'm looking for. We're not going to get Sakuga in the cheering routines. It looks like it's going to be CG stuff. And it's not bad looking CG, but it's not good looking either. It's very average CG. And I question the frame rate and the speed at which the characters move at times. And also the characters are just kind of boring so far. There's none that I'm especially like, yeah, I want to know more about you, except for the girl who is going through physical therapy because apparently something happened to her legs. I am at least interested in that, but everyone else I really am not curious about at all. And one character I'm just absolutely flummoxed by because it's a foreigner from Brazil, but she like kisses people on the cheek like it's European. I don't know if that's a Brazilian thing as well. So at first I was like, Italian, I clocked you. And then we had a little bit of Vic Mignogna action in there. That's a dark joke. But then like she's got like the fucking insanely long like six names. Like I'm like, okay, cool, yeah. I see that. But also she has blonde hair and blue eyes. Now I'm not saying that people from Brazil can't have blonde hair and blue eyes, but Argentina's right there. So why not go for that? Yeah, this Yeah, I'm just not feeling this one. I'm just gonna move on. If I want more cheering stuff, I'll go back and rewatch Anima Yell or something. Alright, Narenare is off the list. Let's see what we roll next. Crank down the number generator. It's gonna be 20 or 12. I can't read. I Parry Everything. Okay, this is either isekai fantasy or fantasy with video game mechanics. Let's see which one it is. Okay, I'm just kind of bored with this one. Got halfway through the first episode of I Parry Everything, and it committed what I now consider to be one of the cardinal sins of storytelling, like visual storytelling, is opens in medias res on something cool happening, and then immediately cuts to a flashback for the rest of the episode. Don't do that. Unless your backstory is really fucking good, don't do that. It's... sorry, this show almost put me to fucking sleep. It's so bland. The main character is so uninteresting, and it's it's doing the thing that these isekai shows that a lot of anime do now, where it's like, you're just a fucking failure at everything. You gotta go. You can't do the fancy adventurer life. Bye bye. And I know it's going to eventually turn into, oh, he has this one specific skill that actually makes him a really good adventurer. Hence the title, I Parry Everything. Which they foreshadow in his time at the adventurer school, where he's like, well, you're really good at parrying, but you're kind of shit at everything else. And also it looks bad. Really, really weak character designs. This is the aesthetic of a show where it's they had to slap shit together without a lot of time to really fine-tune everything. And you know what? There are a couple decent shots, like the shot of him at the dinner table by himself after his mom dies and he's just alone. It's a decent shot. They kind of blur out the edges and fisheye it a little bit to really emphasize the loneliness. So that was decent, but aside from that, it's really not worthy to look at. Sorry, I'm kind of tired. Also, fuck you, High Dive, for fucking up your app again. I literally could not get it to play the Japanese version, even though I selected Japanese as my preferred language, and the English subtitles as my preferred subtitles. I had to go over to my computer to watch it instead of watching it on my big screen in my room. So fuck you. Fuck this show. Alright, I Parry Everything except my disinterest. It's coming off the list. Let's see, we're down to 30 shows now. Really cranking along. Let's see what's next. 14. Ooh, The Magical Girl and the Evil Lieutenant. Okay, I've been excited about this one. This is a Studio Bones show, and it's a short series. I think they're only half-length episodes, so let's dive into it. Okay, as expected, I did finish all of The Magical Girl and the Evil Lieutenant are Archenemies, also known as Maho Aku. Although it is definitely not without its issues. It's not really a lot of my issues. I
I do think I liked the show overall, but there are some, like, big concept structural issues that I think really kept me from enjoying this show. A lot of conflicts of genre, conflicts of subject matter, and stuff. Like, there are a few nitpicky things here and there, like, I feel like actually, it's not really a nitpick. I feel like the evil lieutenant character, Mira, really didn't get as much, like, characterization as I would have liked, or at least a little bit more, like, background circumstances, at least in comparison to Byakuya, our magical girl character. And there were some odd... Well, that gets into the more big structural issues. Like, my biggest issues with this show is that it feels like this is two shows trapped inside of a single show. One of those shows is an intensely more dramatic Love After World Domination. If you've seen that show, that's a show where a Red Ranger, like a Power Ranger, the Red Ranger and, like, the evil demon lord or whatever fall in love and start dating behind everyone's back. It feels like it's a much more... Because that show's a comedy. And this show feels like half a more dramatic version of that and half Machikado Mazoku. It's a Demon Girl Next Door, which is a comedy series about a magical girl that sort of, like, flips some magical girl tropes on their heads. And I don't think those two concepts play well together, because honestly, I wanted this to be more serious than it was. Mainly because this show is absolutely fucking gorgeous. Like, these are half-length episodes, 12 and a half minutes. And normally, when an anime is not the full 24 minutes or whatever, that usually is a sign of, like, okay, we're not really going to put a lot of effort into this one. This is like a lower tier production, so we're just going to sort of put in the bare minimum to get by. That is not the case with Mahoaku. This is a really damn good looking show. The color design is fucking phenomenal. These, like, very almost ethereal purple tones, and, like, these purple and, like, dark grays and stuff. It's just so incredibly pleasant to look at. The character designs are fucking phenomenal. When it does try to do, like, big Sakuga stuff, it's really damn good at doing the Sakuga stuff while also still being, like, really well composed shot-wise. There's this very... the music is, like, very ethereal and just lofty. This is a incredible... This show is incredibly good at setting, like, a very ponderous, contemplative mood, and then, like, just very slowly building itself up into stuff that's a little more dramatic. It is just so good at that. And then the comedy happens. Now, I'm not saying this show should have no comedy. It should be, like, a little bit lighthearted. My problem with this show is that the comedy makes fun of things that I feel like should be reserved for the dramatic part. Because, like, so one of the gags in this is that the sort of magical girl mascot that gives Byakuya her powers is kind of just this Yakuza-like figure. And it's like, that in itself is funny. It's a good gag until it, like, butts. But it's also, I think it would have worked better as a dramatic part, because there's okay, there's no use dancing around it. There's a lot of the gags are just threatening sexual assault, and it's like, but also sometimes that part is used for the more like serious moments where like the cat forces her to be like a hostess at like a hostess club, and she's like very very clearly uncomfortable with that, and like she gets very upset that a video of her getting attacked by slimes is being posted on like erotic websites and stuff. So it's like I don't think you can have it both ways. I'm not saying you should. I'm not saying you should make jokes about sexual assault, but I think it's even worse when you have both of those things existing in the same space, where because it's what sometimes it wants you to take it seriously and sometimes it doesn't, and I just don't think that's possible. And it makes the show a lot less than it could have been because of that. And there's like, and there are like just like a lot of examples of stuff where it's like, damn, this could have been like a really good like character building moment, just just very ethereal kind of just contemplative character drama stuff, but it's also got that Machikado Mazoku vein in it. I believe this was also a 4-koma when the manga was originally published, so that's obviously where that comes from. I also think this might have just been, this could have been also just been better just as a comedy. I think the aesthetic would have had to change drastically because this looks too good to be like as comedy forward as it is. Like it is, the aesthetic is too enrapturing, the color design too soothing to do the comedy parts. And you know what? You could have just... It's a 4-koma, so you really have license to do whatever the hell you want with it. Although I wonder if this particular circumstances around this tied their hands a bit. Because if you're not familiar with this one, the author for the original manga died while it was being published, and it only got like, I think she only got like 3 volumes into it. I think they only got like 3 volumes in before they died, and so this is an unfinished work. So we're absolutely not getting the season 2 because there's just not any more material to work with. Or maybe there is, but who knows. But B, I wonder if this author had not died, would we have been able to like solidify, would we have been able to like iron out this tone issue a little bit? I'm just spitballing for some, like, throwing some kind of Hail Mary to explain why this show is the way it is, because it's frustrating, because I really, really love the relationship, but this budding relationship between Byakuya and Mira. I think they have incredible chemistry. Every interaction they have is intensely sweet and cute and wholesome. And also, I forgot what her fucking name is. Mai something. The voice actress for Byakuya is also the voice actress for Nagisa from Clannad, which is why my Moe sensors were going off the fucking chart every time she opened her mouth. Just the absolute perfect voice for this role. So that, even that was like really sucking me in. I just wish the tone was a little bit more consistent or a little bit more well realized, because there's so much about this show that I love, but also as like the more I watched, the more I was like head-canoning out stuff that I thought would have been better, and the closer you get to thinking, well, this is how I would have done it instead of just watching the show and going, oh, that was really cool how they did that, the closer you get to being like, was this really all that good a show? And man, there was just so much. I like the concept of Hibana as this like school friend character who is really bad at expressing her emotions, so instead she just hits people and yells fuck all the time. It's an interesting concept for a gag, but I think it needed to be ironed out a little bit more and solidified as to what really, or it really needed like a little bit more detail behind it, I think. Yeah, I think I'm just starting to repeat myself at this point. This could have been an incredible show if it was not the show that it was, I guess. Does that make any sense? If it had picked a lane and stuck to it, this could have been a really damn good show. But it trying to have it both ways in terms of the genre leanings, I think really hampered it in the end.
Okay, Magical Girl and Evil Lieutenant is complete. And we're going to scroll not too far up. Yeah, we're going to put it real low in the light 7 range and the number 28 spot. The vibes were great, but man, the tone was just all over the place sometimes. It just needed to be clearer about what it wanted to do, I guess. Still good. Alright. Back to random stuff. What do we got left? 29 shows. So let's pull up our random number generator and see what we get. It's gonna be... what are we getting? 29. All the way to the end. What is that? Oh, Dead Demons, Dededede Destruction. Okay, this was one of the sleeper hits of the season because it was kind of stretched over a season and a half. And this is I think the first Inio Asano property to get an anime adaptation. Let's see if it's worth it.
Okay, gonna have a lot to say about that one. Alright, just wrapped up all of Dead Demons, Destruction. This is a anime adaptation of an Inio Asano manga, which I think this, if I recall, this is the first anime adaptation of an Asano manga. Asano has been like a big sort of like auteur, big manga author in the like 2010s and maybe late 2000s. And I don't get a lot of chances to really talk about him, but in general, I actually don't like Asano that much. The only Asano manga that I've actually completed is Solanine, and I don't even remember what Solanine is about. Like, I got a few chapters into Girl on the Shore and gave up. I got a few chapters into Downfall and gave up. I got 9 volumes into Pun Pun and dropped it. I might retry Poon Poon to see if I like it better this time. And then even this show, I dropped the manga 8 volumes in. So, generally not a fan of Asano, but I think of all of his works, I think this one had the most interesting ideas. Now, the reason why I dropped the manga was kind of twofold. One, the volume where I dropped Dead Demons was volume 8, which is the very long flashback sequence, which I still didn't like in the anime, but for an entirely different reason that we'll get to later. I just remember being completely fucking bored by it in the manga. And two, my politics were very different back when I was reading this manga. This was 2019 and 2020. Let's say I'll be charitable and describe myself as like a libertarian back then. And I was not the leftist that I am now. So, and also I just had some very different views about the world, one could say. Coincidentally, the volume of the manga that I dropped, like the last volume, came out in June of 2020. So, wild times. Anyway, speaking of politics, this is a rarity for anime in that, like, anime is often very political. It just is. But what anime very rarely is something that discusses politics. Like, there are very rarely, like, modern politics happening in anime. And, people having a party outside of fucking, just driving around. Okay. But so this is like one of the few like very, very pointedly political anime that I have seen, and boy, its politics are fucking bleak. This is the show about an army massacring unarmed civilians really does hit differently in 2024. It sure hits different. So, this is why I have a rule about, like, nothing I drop is dropped forever. Because I am going to be a different person in 4 years. So, it is... I'm not going to say it's fortuitous that the anime adaptation came out in 2024, but it sure does shine a new light on genocide. And there are a lot of things in this show where I remember reading the manga and be like, God, this is silly and unrealistic, and like politicians are like greedy and stupid, but they're not like this greedy and this stupid. And today I am recording this on the day that Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, the bright bulb that she is, decided to tweet that they control the weather. She did not specify who they is, but I bet some of you have a guess. So, I saw that, and then I was watching this show, and I was like, No, no, they got a point. They do got a point. It's not pleasant to watch, but it sure is accurate. Like, specifically just the selfish cruelty of people in power just moving the machine along is very accurate. And just being like, just don't just do what we've always done. Just follow this. We're gonna just accrue a little bit of power here and there and just fucking stay in line. And just this fucking hapless dope of a prime minister in charge of everything, who's really not in charge of anything at all, and he's just being bullied around by his ministers, which is just bleak, very bleak. Then the unarmed civilian murder. Well, technically they're not civilians because they are aliens, but you get the fucking point. And wow, they really, for the most part, they make it not fun to watch. Like, sometimes when anime tries to do like big death scenes, like we're just gonna kill a bunch of people in really violent ways, they try to make it look cool, and sometimes it's like warranted to look cool, but this is like a genocide happening, and they very much frame it as a genocide. The deaths are fucking brutal and gruesome, and they are uncomfortable, and it's, for the most part, sometimes it gets a little too hee ha ha villainy. But again, I've met accelerationists, so can't say that they don't exist. This is a dark show. I would not recommend doing what I did and binging this show. Like, I watched a few episodes last night, and then I watched the rest of it today on a Saturday, and would not recommend it, not because it was bad, but because it has injured my mental health. Probably does not help that tomorrow I'm going to go watch Look Back. Oh, this is going to be a wild weekend. Also, it is after midnight by the time I'm recording this, because I got to the last 2 episodes and I was like, well, fuck, I gotta see what happens here. But you know what? On top of that really bleak political bastardry, they have this very, very heartfelt story of a bunch of schoolgirls who are just trying to be hanging out and being friends and just trying to navigate their way through this hostile political environment. Just that, framing their average everyday lives against the current events was very good. And when they start actually interacting with an alien and just sort of trying to hide him while also trying to think of anything that they can do to make the situation better, very youthful yearning, I guess, would be the good way to describe it, despite the fact that it is entirely hopeless. Hence the penultimate episode of this show. Now, again, normally I don't give spoiler warnings, but I'm going to, before I start diving into the specifics of this show, I'm going to say that I have a problem with the way that I don't think I've ever said this on the seasonal wrap-up show before, and I can't really think of other shows where this has been a problem. I have a problem with the way that episodes were ordered in this show. I have a problem with the way events were given to the audience. So I believe it's episodes 5 and 6 are flashback episodes. It's a flashback to when Kadode and Oran met an alien for the first time and tried to prove to him that humanity is worth coexisting with. And this is the flashback that I mentioned where I dropped the original Dededede Demons. And you know what? Still didn't like it here. Because it is way too fucking long. It did not need to be 2 episodes. And also, it's really not interesting. Aside from the framing of the Doraemon parody that they do. Just like, oh, what if Doraemon's powers were being harnessed by someone who wanted to enact their own version of justice on the world? Like, it's just Death Note. Everything boils down to Death Note. But yeah, those episodes I didn't find particularly interesting. This is where we got into the spoilers. The flashback ends with Kadode committing suicide. And then that's just not addressed again for another, 9 or 10 episodes. Maybe 8 episodes, but it's just not addressed again for a while. And so you're just left going, well, what the fuck? How did we get here then? And it doesn't do the thing that a good mystery show would do where it leaves bits and pieces everywhere. It just completely puts it on the back burner until they need to do more plot dumping to explain what is going on with timeline jumping and just time travel and all this shit. And so here's what I would do. Actually, I think it's episode... Hold on. Let me... Since I probably still have the episode list up here. Yeah, I think it's episode 13? I believe? So, I would say, you move episodes... There's no practical way to do this because the show just kind of fucks itself with other things that happen. But I would just do it the way that the manga did it, where you move episodes 5 and 6 to after the 5-minute mark in episode 13, where Oba, I think that was that his name? Yeah, Oba and Makoto dive into Oran's memories and see what happened. You can leave other hints earlier in the show, but don't drop the entire backstory in the first third. Because even though you do like these characters, by the way, these are sorry, it is very late right now. Even though these are very good characters, and I love the chemistry amongst them. This is one of the few instances of anime where it's a bunch of high school girls interacting with each other, and it's actually oh, these are actually they're actually acting like high school girls. That's another reason why I don't like the flashback is they're 4 year... No, I think they're actually 7 years younger in the flashback. and they talk like adults, and it's just so not good. Or not, it's just not. It takes you out of the experience, kind of. But like, so yeah, I would move the flashback scene way back in the series so that it's like a big chunky reveal. I still don't think it's a particularly great flashback, but at least building up to it will give it more weight as like a big mystery reveal. Also, I don't fucking like the last episode. I understand what the point is. It's part of the theme of like, as long as you're by my side, we can get through everything. It's like the contrast between the nightmarish world-ending explosion of the penultimate episode and the work sucks, I know, of the final episode. They pull a fucking Ava episode 26. By the way, the penultimate episode has the fucking green cross as the explosion goes off. Technically, it's not a cross, but it's an Ava reference. You can't tell me that it's not an Ava reference. I think... You know what? Based on everything else that I've read from Asano, it would not surprise me that he is a huge fan of Ava. I would not be surprised if that were the case. But I just... The last episode is an entire episode of like, oh, what if we were just in a normal world where everything was fine and we just got to interact like normal people for almost the entire runtime. Like, it starts with Kadode's dad coming back so that he can reset the timeline in order for that to happen. Or not reset it, but jump to a different timeline. But yeah, I like the show a bit less because of that final episode. I would have ended it on the penultimate episode where Tokyo just fucking explodes, but the explosion stops the rest of the world from dying. Or at least that's what the what's connotation is. I thought that was a fun kind of twist. And then just no aftermath. Don't show it. Don't tell us what happens. Don't show me that Oran and Kadode are in giant mechs fighting the government that's shooting lasers down from space. Don't show that. Just cut to white, and because it's like a giant bright light engulfing everything, and just being like Kadode and Oran holding hands and be like, as long as you're by my side, we can do this. And end it there. It's very rare that it's a real Parasite the Maxim kind of moment, where the final episode like is just bafflingly stupid. Well, not bafflingly stupid, but bafflingly unnecessary. So, had some complaints with that, but you know what? Aside from that, this was a really good it's a thriller, I'll give it that much, and a drama, but it is hard to watch sometimes because it is just relevant. Again, I already talked about the fucking genocide, but boy, it's rough. It can be very difficult to do. Like, there were so many times where I was just like, God, do I want to watch the next episode right now? It's rough. if not for that final episode, it might have left me with like the same feelings as something like Cyberpunk Edge Runners, where it's just like, ooh, man, I feel hollow inside. This sucks. Sucks in like a, not in like a this is narratively bad kind of way, but like this sucks in a I'm depressed kind of way. So we did not get that, unfortunately. God, I'm just kind of all over the place with this one. And yeah, is this just a really, aside from all of the very specific complaints that I made, it's a really good show. The cast is fucking great. I love this running theme of like, just don't disappear on me, because we've had characters just, these are characters living in essentially a disaster zone where it's just like everyone has lost loved ones at this point. One of the members of their group dies in like the 3rd episode or something, and it's just maybe it's the 4th episode, I don't remember, and it's just a big old gut punch that sends her ex-boyfriend into a fucking psychotic frenzy, spiraling downwards. And also, this show is really good at understanding the internet and understanding how people could just live in entirely different realities. Like, he started writing this in 2014, I think. So, he started this pre-Trump, which is wild to me. Also, there is a President Trump stand-in this show who has one of the funniest lines in the entire series, where he describes the alien mothership as if it's about to blow its load all over Tokyo. Oh my god. Also, there's a lot of English voice acting in this, and it's actually all pretty good. Like, they definitely got Americans to voice those lines. I would be shocked if those were not Americans, because it is very clearly like perfect English, nothing wrong with the grammar. There's no accent on it. It's just it might not be the greatest acting ever, but it's not English. It is just normal people speaking. Also, America fucks with Japan constantly in this show, where it's just like, yeah, that is what we do. That is what we do. And sort of the actual moral circumstances of this show are very complicated and interesting. Like, it's very, like, the SDF is very obviously genociding these aliens, even though they're like unarmed and not trying to kill anyone. But also, it's like revealed later that like the aliens came here, like they say that they were on this planet first, and now they're coming back to recolonize it, and that they wanted to put the humans to work as a labor force, but humans were just way more powerful than they expected. But then also it's revealed that the ship that was sent off was like something that the alien government had done in order to like purge a percentage of their population for population control. But they did that sort of like secretly. So very complicated politics that does not at all negate the genocide. We get a soldier's perspective as he is like gets used to murdering unarmed aliens, and the way that he looks at other people who think that he's like doing the greatest thing on earth, like his like he actually just gets fucking sick of people who praising him for murdering aliens. But he still does it because that's his job, and he has started to compartmentalize his morals as part of being a soldier. So that's a whole other bag of worms. God, I am all over the place with this show, but there's just so goddamn much to talk about with it. It is a fucking smorgasbord of ideas and just fun little things here and there. Like the Doraemon parody is just a nice little touch to make some of these weird gadgets make sense thematically. And yeah, even aside, I think I was supposed to be talking about the characters at some point. Yeah, the characters are good. They're really good. And I really like the way they interact with each other. The way that they use the net is so excruciatingly, infuriatingly accurate. Especially like the older brother character who's like dedicates himself to being a troll because he thinks it's his civic duty. Fucking incredible. Yeah. There's so much to love about this show. And you know what? The aesthetic's pretty dang good too. This is exactly what I thought an Inio Asano manga would look like if it was an anime, because his character designs are very distinctive. And they they've been translated surprisingly well to animation. And even some of the like Asano-isms sort of make their way in, like these like text on the screen in weird ways with like the hum of the alien spaceship. There's like some live action inserts here and there. That's another Asano-ism. Everything just looks really crisp and clean. It's not always perfectly animated, but it never really breaks in any way. And color design's fucking fantastic. Some of the more trippy visuals are really cool. The CG is very rarely noticeable. Even when it's like big crowd shots, it's pretty decent. Yeah, this is if not for the weird structural issues I have and that final episode that I just don't like, this is a dang good show. Again, take it in chunks, because it's going to make you depressed if you try to binge it. I am very depressed now and very tired, but I'm glad that I do this show, because if I was just not bothering with every show every season, I would have seen this and gone, oh, that's a manga I dropped. I'm not going to watch the anime. But I'm glad I gave it another shot.
Also, I forgot to mention I did not watch the episode 0 at all, because I heard that it just spoils a bunch of the show if you watch the episode 0. So don't do that. Probably should have said that at the beginning. Oh well. Also, I don't plan on watching the movie compilation versions, because why would I do that? Anyway, Dead Demons is complete. We're going to scroll up. We're going to put it right here in the number 16 spot. A lot of summer season shows congregating in this area right now, and you get a strong 7. I can't overlook the structural issues with this, because they really did piss me off, but otherwise, really damn solid show with a lot going on. Okay, now that I talked about that for fucking ever, that was at least a 20-minute thing, probably. I think we're just gonna jump to an end cap now. Too many losing heroines. That'll be a nice rom-com to take the edge off, hopefully. 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 Let's jump in.
Alright, that's another big seasonal rom-com in the bag. Just finished watching Makeine, Too Many Losing Heroines. Fun times. Fun times. I was hoping for a little bit... Well, no. That's not really what happened. I got as much... well, let's jump into it. Again, this is our... Pretty much every season now has like a... kind of a banger, upbeat kind of rom-com. With really like good animation. Usually from Cloverworks or A1 Pictures. In this case, it's A1 Pictures. Like, this is, it's just sort of a thing that is kind of prevalent now, and I'm not opposed to it. I like having one really solid rom-com every season. And this was definitely one of them. This show is really fucking funny. It's got some great gags in it, in this very, like, God, a lot of the humor in this show is just joke punchlines said with the biggest shit-eating grin you could possibly muster. Just, like, really leaning into the snark and the sarcasm of it all. But without being, like, insincere about it. It's just very, like... It's almost Konosuba-ish in a certain way. It's not nearly as mean as Konosuba, but it's sort of got, like, the same kind of, like, very, like... It's got a similar vibe, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Which obviously is going to make me like it, since I like Konosuba quite a lot. And also like Konosuba, the chemistry amongst the main cast is just really fucking solid. It just feels like they are all genuinely very good friends as the series goes on, and they just interact more and more. Especially... I forget what the main... Nukumizu? Is it Nukumizu? I think that's the main character's name. And the main losing heroine, Anna. We'll go with Anna. I'm really terrible with names. I'm getting worse with anime character names. That's a problem that I need to address. I really like the chemistry between our two, like, main leads, mostly because Anna is just this kind of an Aqua-ish kind of character, where she just will be kind of off in her own little world about stuff, while the male MC is just standing there Kazuma-esque going like, is this bitch serious? Yeah, and I didn't really think about it that much while I was watching it, but now as I explain it, this show is a lot like Konosuba in a lot of ways. Just instead of a fantasy world, it is girls who got rejected and are now hanging out with the main character for some reason. Well, the some reason is because he's just like a genuinely decent guy who is open to listening to their problems. So he's just naturally good at making friends, I guess. But I will say that I'm not going to say he is devoid of character. Like, he has some interesting characteristics aside from just being a kind loader type dude. But I think he could do with a little bit more personality. I think he could just have a few more likes and dislikes than anime and light novels, and the one quirk of him being very like upset, what's the hyperfixated on the different water qualities of all the sinks in the school. It's like that's one of the things where it's like, okay, we're gonna do, that's where like not quite as well written characters where people will be like, well, instead of writing a really detailed character, we're just going to give him like a quirk so he stands out. That's a characterization, right? That's what characterization means. I'm being way too hard on it. I actually don't mind this MC at all. I think he's fine. I just wish I'm going to completely forget about him by the time I'm done wrapping up the season. But he's fine. He's just massively overshadowed by all of the other characters in this show. But yeah, I really like our three lead heroines. Anna just being fucking... I don't even know how to describe her really. Just, again, very Aqua-ish. Often her just has an idea and fucking runs with it regardless of whether it makes sense or not. Then we have Yakishio, who is the kind of a bog standard athletic type. Well, no, again, I'm being a little too harsh on it. She's the typical like athletic girl type, but also she's kind of dumb as shit sometimes, which makes for some very entertaining interactions. And then we have Komori, who is our mandatory shy girl archetype. But they added in like a legitimate stutter. Like, I don't know if it's intended to be like an actual stutter, or if it's just like she is so shy that she stutters constantly. But it definitely worked in conveying that aspect of her character, I guess. But really, the star of the show is the way that all these characters like bounce off of each other, and the way that Nukumizu just sort of goes through all of their rejections and sort of helps them out however he can. I will say Anna's is definitely the strongest, just in how it's sort of it's like half him standing up for her in a situation, and also half her going, that's great and all, but you've still got it fucking wrong, and now listen to what I actually have to say. I am going to take agency over this situation. So I think hers was definitely the strongest. And I will say Komori is definitely the weakest, which is a shame because I really like her, but man, they stretched that out for longer than it needed to be. I feel like Komori's arc was a half episode too long. It could have been trimmed down because it really started to repeat itself by the end. And it was repetition without adding intensity. So it just felt kind of needless. Yeah, not the penultimate episode, but not the final episode, but like the penultimate episode and the one before that. It really it felt like they were accidentally leaning on the brakes a little bit, and it just really started to slow down. Or it could just be that I watched the last 3 episodes of this show after I watched Look Back, and dear Lord, there is no possible way to compare these two. They are just on completely different... They are just operating on completely different levels. And that's not fair to Makeine. Yeah, it's weird. It's spelled. See, if you were to pronounce it with like Japanese pronunciations, it would be Makeine, but it's a portmanteau of make or or Makeine, I think, and then a heroine. So it's Makeine. So fun little spelling thing. Also, the fucking title drop in the final episode. It's not even like a real title drop. It's sort of like a reference to a title drop. And my eyes rolled so hard that they almost rolled out of my head. So it served its job as a pun, I guess. Congratulations on that. But yeah, this is just a really fun show, and I do kind of like how it what makes this one stand out, I guess, is that it sort of does, well, the obvious route of like, okay, what happens to these characters after they get rejected? Their feelings haven't completely gone away, and so we kind of have to wrap that up a little bit. And I think that's where some of the more interesting, like, story elements of this and more interesting character development comes from. Again, not all of it's great, but it definitely makes this show stand out a bit in terms of, like, adding, not deconstructing rom-coms. It's not doing that, but it's, like, sort of following up on rom-coms, I guess. Because this show also has a habit of, like, wavering, I guess is a good word, between poking fun at rom-com tropes, often very viciously, and just indulging in those tropes. So I can't really say for certain whether it, like, truly likes those tropes or if it's just falls into those on occasion just because that's common practice. So I didn't quite get a firm grasp on that, but you know what? It was fun and good to look at. This is again, as I mentioned at the top, this is a really well produced rom-com. The OP and the first ED are just fucking phenomenal looking. I just have to mention those. Like, the first ED has, like, a bunch of live action work in it. Very Karekado-esque. But, like, even more intense and creative. If you don't feel like checking out this show, at least watch the ED just to see how creative they get with some of this stuff. But overall, this is a very, very, very polished looking rom-com. I like that the color palette is a bit darker in hue. Not necessarily, I guess in shade, technically would be the way to describe it. The colors are very hyper-saturated and tend to lean more on, like, darker tones. And so it has a very it has a very cool looking aesthetic to it that really makes it ironically, for as dark as it is, it really makes it pop to a certain degree. And there's some fun little cinematography tricks here and there. Like, one of my favorites is they will frame one of the girls against this massive cumulonimbus cloud that's just stretching out into the sky, and I'm pretty sure the symbolism is supposed to be that their emotions are sort of overflowing and just pouring out of them in those moments. So real good symbolism there, and sometimes it's just got really fun visual tricks in its spot that it pulls out. So yeah, This is a fun show. I was hoping for a little bit more on the thematic and characterization side. Oh, also there are some of the side characters in this are real hit and miss. Like the one of the teachers is just straight up like a voyeur, just like spying on the students getting into romantic mishaps. The student council vice president, I think, is fucking insane wacko, and she's probably my favorite of the side characters just because she is 100% committed to the bit of just being a fucking insane person that looks like that she's about to fly into a psychotic rage at the drop of a hat. The little sister character is just the little sister character, like the Onisama little sister character, not the Oni-chan little sister character. I think that could have used a little bit more characterization. But yeah. Do you even know what I mean by that? I feel like all 25 of you that watch these videos probably know what I mean when I say that, but who knows? She's very bro-con-esque. And it kind of just plays the trope straight without an aggressive amount of exaggeration, so it just doesn't play quite as well as it could have. So yeah, I think some fine tuning could have made this show really great, and if it had a little bit more depth to it, I would probably remember it a lot more. I don't think this show is unmemorable to any extent, but considering how much I watch, I probably won't remember a whole lot about it, but boy, I had a fun time with this one. Especially like those first few episodes were just so incredibly full of like life and energy and comedy. Just real fun times. I like this one.
Alright, Makeine is done. And we're going to put you, where did I decide? Yeah, we're going to put you in the number 23 spot for now with a decent 7. Could have been a little bit stronger, but you know what? I had a good time.